Welcome everyone to this strategy course in the Mahjong Competitive Rules game, or in short MCR. The topic of today, or basically the title, is One Away from Glory. And in this course, I will teach you things that are happening when you are one away from calling. Right? And this is a situation that every Mahjong player will inevitably encounter, right? And the situation one away from calling means that when you get a specific set of tiles into your hand, you are ready to win, right? So then you are just waiting for one or even more tiles from others, or picking it yourself to call who, right? And this is the most crucial moment in the game, at least in my opinion, and suboptimal decisions can greatly reduce your winning chances. And in this course, I will show you many situations where you are one away that are frequently encountered in real gameplay and how to assess them. Right, so let's get started. And here in the introduction, I show you one of the most common examples that players will find themselves in, especially beginners, right, who just learned the game and they roughly know what the plan is, right? They see, right, mixed straight, for example, here, right, and they just go for it, which is perfectly viable, right? Because, right, if you see something where you can win at the end, right, you can go for it. And in this situation, the obvious goal and the only option here is mixed straight, right? And in order to achieve this, you want to get the 2 of characters or the 8 of bamboo. And when you get one of this, then you are automatically winning for the other one to win the hand. The caveat here is, if you don't get these tiles, then you cannot win the hand, right? So you really want those. And also note that you are technically calling with drawing a 6 of bamboo, right? And then you discard the 9 of bamboo. But if you do this one, then you cannot win the hand, since you do not have the required 8 fan, even with self-pick, right? You can do the math yourself. If you don't have mixed straight, you don't win the hand. So having a hand that is ready is, right, there are 2 sides of this coin, right? You can be ready for 8 fan, which is what you want, but you can also be ready with not enough fan, which is what you don't want. So so technically there are 3 tiles that give you a calling hand, but in reality it's only 2, right? So this is in contrast to maybe Japanese Mahjong, where you want a closed hand, right? And you can draw any tile, but in MCR that is a little bit different. Okay, so now whenever you are one away, there are 3 possibilities on how you can get the tile for calling. That is self-pick, right, which is obvious, but then you also have the option to chow or pung a tile. And in the case of this example here, you can get the 2 of bamboo, 2 of characters and the 8 of bamboo with self-pick or a chow, right? And knowing this, you can assess the strength of this one away, right? So here on the right hand side, you can see a little box where your options are being laid out. So pick, chow or pung, and then at the end you will get a score. And I will now talk about how the score is calculated. Oops, sorry. So on this slide, right, we for the simplicity, we assume that it is still early in the round and no relevant tiles for your hand have been discarded. Right? So obviously if, let's say, the 8 of bamboo has been discarded twice already, then this one away obviously is going to be decreasing in strength. And then you should imagine that all opponents immediately discard the tile they just drew. Right, this is also a bold assumption, but it makes calculation a bit easier. And if you take these first two assumptions, then you see that in total there are 4 of each, 2 of characters and 8 of bamboo. Right, there are always, for each individual tile, there are 4 of the same copy. So you have 2 times 4 equals 8 chances for self-pick. Right, and then the player on your left also has 8 chances to pick the tile. Right, we assume that they just draw and discard. Right, and so you have 8 chances by picking it yourself, and your player on your left also has 8 chances, which when you add it together, this equals 16, right? So the number in the bracket is the number of different tiles. We have 2 here, and you have 8 tiles in total, right? 2 times 4 equals 8. And then you can pick or chow all of them, and this results in 16. Now, a pung, right, which is also possible, is even more powerful, since then 3 players will be drawing this tile for you, right? So, but for a pung, then in that case you already see 2 of the same tiles in your hand, which means there are only 2 tiles available. But since there are 3 possible players it can come from, the strength of a pung for an individual pung, right, is 2 times 3 equals 6 chances per tile. So the total score of your one away can be roughly assessed with, right, the number of tiles available for pick plus number of tiles available for chow plus the tiles available for pung times 3, right? And then you will get a score. But it is important to note that this score is only a rule of thumb that is easy to remember, right? So that we have a tool for comparison. In a real game, of course, you have to take discarded tiles and their value into account, right? So a simple example is if wind tile comes out easier than a 6, right? Or if the 5 of characters has been gonged from another player, right? Then obviously there is no more 5 of characters available, right? And this, every situation changes the score, which is basically an indicator of how good your one away is, right? And every one of these situations can change it. So this is why we make the assumption that everything is available, everything is coming out, right? So again, if the player on your left is going for full flush in the character suit, right, which, right, after 8 discards becomes very obvious, then you shouldn't expect to get any character tiles from him. But on the other hand, you will get every other suit from him very quickly, right? So yeah, this is what you have to consider. But for this course, just assume everything comes out and everything is available. Okay, so here, this specific example here, which is for sure something that you will encounter when playing MCR, your strength of this one away is 16. And in general, in my experience at least, a score below 16 is bad. 16 to 24 is okay, and above 24 is great. And this hand right here with a score of 16, right, is borderline okay. If it's even 1/8 of bamboo has been discarded already, the score decreases to 14, which is already bad. So this situation that you see here is not good, right? It's really not good, but it's still one of the most common situations. But in general, the higher the score, of course, the more likely and faster you will achieve a ready hand. And the example here is, as I said, barely acceptable if you cannot avoid it, right? But if you can avoid it, you should, right? Okay. So now let's look at some of the one-ways that are commonly encountered in a game. So here, the first one we're looking at is the non-chow fan, which is suit or ranged base. And these are typically very easy when it comes to being one away, as you simply maximize your acceptance, as any drawn tile will be good, right? So fan that fall into this category are, for example, half flush, full flush, or upper and lower four, which are the most common ones. And yeah, you quickly see what is going on here. So for example, if we are asked to assess the strength of this one away by calculating the score for all possible acceptances, right, you see that any tile that gives you ready hand is good, right? And here on the right hand side you can see which tiles are these. So 2, 4, 7, 8 of bamboo and the green dragon. If you get these tiles, you are immediately waiting for winning, right? And yeah, and even every single tile here, doesn't matter which one you get, you will have 8 fan, even when taking the tile from others, right? So yeah, but sometimes you need to take into consideration that if the main fan is worth less than 8, which here half flush is, right, it's only worth 6, then you have to be careful and not accidentally get into a situation where you have to self-draw, right? But here you can see that you can obviously pick all of these 5 tiles, which in total are 15 available if you do the count, and you can chow 3 of these tiles, which are the 2, the 4, and the 7 of bamboo, right? These are the 3 tiles which you can chow from the player on your left, which are 11 different tiles. And you can also pung the 8 of bamboo or the green dragon to be calling. So 4 different tiles, you multiply this by 3, add this together, and then you get the score of 38, which is awesome, right? And again, this class of one-aways for the suit range-based fans, they have among the best scores. And if you go for these hands, so if you have a fast path towards one of these hands, then you should go for it, because your one-away is going to be very good, right? Note that they aren't always great, right? You can have very bad shapes, but most of the time your one-away is going to be better than in the first example, right, where the score was 16. So yeah, that's the strength of these type of fans. Now let's move on to the closed fans, right? And closed fans, as the name implies, is you have to self-pick the tile all the way until you're calling. And such a fan is here, for example, knitted and honors. And here it doesn't matter what you do, your one away will always have the same score, right? You will always be waiting to pick one of these, for one of 4 different tiles. In this example here would be these ones highlighted, and there are only 16 of these tiles available. So the score is at best 16, and if any of these tiles have been discarded once or more, right, then you are already having a bad one away, right? And a bad one away, in my experience, you shouldn't be surprised to never get ready, right? That's the reality of it, right? Shouldn't be surprised if you get ready, right? I would already consider this more on the lucky side. So yeah, again, closed fans, pretty hard to get. And the next typical candidate in this list is 7 pairs, where you see that your one away is absolutely terrible, right? You have only at best 9 tiles available, which you have to draw yourself. But yeah, if you manage to get ready and win this hand, right, you are being rewarded with 24 fan, right, which is something, right? It's not bad winning 24 fan, especially if you also manage to self-pick this one. Okay, so Now let's move on to this special example, right? Sometimes you will find in your situation where your only option is all punks, right? Which is here for this example shown. If you find yourself in this situation, right, this hand is one away from calling, you will have to pick or pung one of 3 different tiles. And because a pung is really fast, right, usually, even if you only have 6 different tiles available, the score is still 24, right, which is quite respectable, right? It's better than the very first example. But you have to keep in mind that as soon as you're waiting for a pung where one tile has already been discarded, the strength decreases very quickly, right? So if instead of 6 tiles available, 5 tiles are available, your score is already 20, right? So yeah, this can decrease your speed quite quickly. Okay, so now we move on to the interesting part, which are chow-based fans, right? And if you look at the table of the likelihood of the fan being in your winning hand, these are from the most popular, right? And you see that the chow-based fans are part of the most commonly won hands, right? You see mixed shifted chows, mixed straight, mixed triple chows, right? It's all in the top of the list, right? So the couple of first fans that are worth more than 2, right, are chow fans, right? Okay, so for chow-based fans, the one away is restricted, as not all tiles can be used to wait on a valid hand. So if you go to the first example, you see, or you saw, that you can only get the 2 of characters or the 8 of bamboo, but not the 6 of bamboo, right? The 6 of bamboo you're calling, but you don't have enough fan. So the conclusion is the 5 of bamboo does not contribute to your hand, right? If you imagine this 5 of bamboo was something, right? Even the dragon or wind tile, it wouldn't change the situation of our one away, right? We still want the 2 of characters or the 8 of bamboo. So in this case, you could swap this 5 of bamboo to a safe tile to discard later, right? So if you pick up a wind, you can just throw the 5 of bamboo right out because it does not contribute to your hand. Okay, so now moving to the chow-based fans. Here is the first example I will be showing you. And here I want you to take a moment to assess this hand which is one away from calling, all right? And think about the score-based system that we just introduced, all right? And think about this hand. So in this case here, whenever I ask a question from you, please take a moment to pause the video and think about this one away from yourself, right? Which tiles can you get into your hand, or do you want to get into your hand, so you will end up calling for a hand that is worth 8 or more fan, right? So again, feel free to pause the video and think about what or how good this one away is comparing to the first example, while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, I will now reveal the solution. So in this hand, you can see that you are aiming for the fan of mixed shifted chows, right? Which is 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, and 5, 6, 7, right? But due to the construction of our hand right here, you can get the 4, 5, 6 or the 5, 6, 7 with either of the 2-sided shapes in the circle and in the bamboo suit. And the good thing is you can also chow any of these tiles, right? So you want the 4 and the 7 of circles, the 4, the 7 of bamboo, which are 4 different tiles, and there are 16 tiles available. So the score of this one away is 32, which is great, right? It's double as good, is twice as good as in the initial example, right? Your options are just double, right? You have double the options, right? So if you chow the 4 of circles for the 4, 5, 6, you're automatically waiting on the 7 of bamboo. And if you chow the 7 of circles, you're waiting for the 4 of bamboo, right? So this one away is very flexible, right? And if you can go for such a one away, right, you should do this, right? If you see this from far away, try to go for this one. Okay, let's move on to the next example. This one. Again, feel free to pause the video and think about what tiles do you need to get a ready hand and in which way you can get them. Alright, if you had a moment to think about this, this is the solution. Here, this one away is called a floating one away. It's also one of the most common situations found in MCR, right? So you have a starting hand and you see plans, right, that are forming, right, where tiles could evolve into a plan, but at the end you end up with going for multiple options, but there is just this one shape that still hasn't come together yet, right? And in this case here, where you look at this hand, you have two plans, right? You can go for the pure straight, right, if you connect to the 9 of circles, but you can also go for all types if you connect to the 8 of bamboo. So in order to be calling, right, you have to get either the 7 and the 8 of circles or the 7 and 9 of bamboo. But the difference here is you have to draw it by yourself, right? You can't call this because you don't have a connected shape just yet there. So the strength of this one away is 16, which is equal to the strength of the one away in our initial example, right? So this one away, although it's common, it is not very good, right? So if you can avoid this, please do, right? Okay, so let's move on to this example right here. So again, feel free to pause the video and take a moment to assess this hand, which is one away from calling. Okay, if you had the time to think about it, this is the solution. So here, there are 6 different tiles that you can pick up to be one away from calling, right? If you found every one of these tiles, then congratulations. And especially interesting here is the 5 and the 6 of circles, right? Which, if you get this to your hand, you are calling for pure shifted chows, right? With a 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, and 6, 7, 8 of circles, right? 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8. And these 2 tiles can be called with chow, right? But since you have already one 6 of circles in your hand, it's 7 different tiles available, right? So if you get the 6, you chow with a 7, 8. If you get the 5, you chow with a 4, 6. But there is also this 5 of characters right here. And if you look at the hand here, you also have the option of mixed shifted chows, right? And this shape of the hand is especially favorable because you have the option of going to 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6 mixed shifted chows with the 3, 4, 5 in characters. But you also have the option of going to 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 6, 7, 8 mixed shifted chows with a 5, 6, 7 of characters. So this 5 of characters is what we call a super floating tile, which has very large acceptance. So any tile around this 5 of characters is a good tile, right? So please appreciate the strength of this single tile in your hand and how much acceptance it provides. And the score of this one away is 30, right? So it's a very good runaway, and you should expect to get into a ready hand quite soon. Okay, so now let's look at this example, and again, feel free to pause the video and think about the strength of this one away while I give you a couple of seconds. here's the solution to this one away. So here you have 5 different tiles that make you give you a calling hand. And here the difference to the previous examples is that you have 2 completed sequences for your Fan with a 3rd incomplete, right? So you have for the mix shifted chows already confirmed 2, 3, 4 and 3, 4, 5, right? And the 3rd shape is already also confirmed but incomplete, right? So you want the 6 for the 6 of bamboo for the mix shifted chows, right? You don't want the 3 since that is not a Fan, so you only want the 6. But this means that for the rest of the hand, which is if it's not complete, you can maximize the acceptance however you want, right? And you can get any tile that you want, right? So these 5 different tiles give you a ready hand, which you can all pick, 16 different tiles, but you can chow as freely as you want for here the 6 and 9 of bamboo. Characters, right? So you can chow here 2 different tiles here, and of course you can chow the 6 of bamboo, right? Which is the tile that you most want, right? You want it the most. But you can also pung the 7 of characters and the 1 of circles to be calling for the 6 of bamboo, right? But here in this case, I chose this specific case. If you pung the 7 of characters, you will be ready with a hand that requires self-draw, right? So here, a pung on the 7 of characters is actually quite dangerous, right? Since you have only mixed shifted chows, no honors, which is 7 Fan, right? So you have to self-draw for this additional Fan to get to 8. And so it is much better to pung the 1 of circles, because then you also have pung of terminals and honors, which gives you this 1 additional Fan, so you can take the 6 of bamboo from others. So if the 7 of characters comes out, it is advisable to skip this tile, right? But technically it gives you a ready hand. Okay, so the strength of this one away is 40, which is also very, very good, right? Okay, so here let's move on to a very complex example, a chow-based Fan, and this is actually a hand that I had in a game recently. So again, here feel free to pause the video and assess the strength of this one away while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so if you had a moment to think about it, the solution is the following here, right? So if you looked at this hand, then you will notice that every tile from the 2 to the 9 of bamboo will give you a ready hand, right? Because the hand here is actually very flexible, right? You already have 2 confirmed shapes for the mixed shifted chows, right? And you can get a mixed shifted chows either with a 3, 4 and 5 of bamboo, or with a 6, 7, 8 of bamboo, and you already have the 6, 7, 8 of bamboo in your hand, right? So technically you already have mixed shifted chows fully confirmed. So you have a floating 4 and the 7, which accept all of the tiles in the vicinity to give you a ready hand, right? So if you count everything together, how many tiles you can chow, how many tiles you can pung, right? The score of this one away is 58, which is insane, right? It's insanely good. So here the weight, so this one away is so good that you can already be greedy within your options for the future, right? So for the waiting hand. So here, although you can pung the 5 and the 7 of bamboo, right? If you do this, you will end up with a very bad weight. And again, with so many options, you can just skip these, right? If they come out, and try to aim for a good weight or a fully concealed hand, right? All depends on the game state, but you can be very greedy with this hand. And in the game where I got this, I got the 7 of bamboo from the player to the left, and I took it with Chow with the 6 and 8. Right, the 7 of bamboo became my pair, and I discarded a 5 of bamboo, waiting for the 3 and the 6 of bamboo, which I both could claim with Who, right, also from others, right? So got a very quick win there, right? So again, for example, just think about what would you do if you draw the 9 of bamboo, right? Okay, if you draw the 9 of bamboo, you take a ready hand, right, discarding the 4 of bamboo, right? But if the 9 of bamboo comes out from the player on your left, right, you can already think about things of skipping this one, right? Because if you chow the 9 of bamboo, right, you're only waiting for the 8 of bamboo for your mixed shifted chows, right? And this wait, right, you're waiting, but the wait is not very good, right? There are many other tiles that give you a much better wait, right? Or fully concealed hand. So here, this hand was very good one away. Okay, let's move on to this example, and feel free to pause the video and think about this hand while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so I've had time to think about it. The solution here is the following. So please notice that this hand at 1 away does not have a completed pair, and therefore in this situation, right, you have the mixed shifted chows plan confirmed, right? You only need the 3 of characters, right? But you don't have a pair, and you have to draw this pair by yourself. So the only way of you getting ready is drawing one of these pairs or chowing the 3 of characters. And if you assess the likelihood of this happening, the score is only 14. So it is very bad. So the conclusion here, having no pair at 1 away is terrible, right? And you have to avoid this as much as possible. So do not carelessly discard a pair to pursue more options if you are 2 away or earlier, right? So at 1 away, you have to get a pair, right? Otherwise, it's just doomed. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. So imagine just the example, just the previous example, which you got yourself in a terrible situation. Then you draw the 5 of bamboo here. And now the question is, what would you discard after this draw? Again, pause the video and think about your next step while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, the solution to this one is to discard either the 8 or the 9 of bamboo circles, right? So if you do this, right, if you look at the acceptance, previously it was 14, now when keeping the 5 of bamboo, you gain the option of chowing the 5 of bamboo with the 4 and the 6 in order to get a ready hand, right? Because now you're hoping to have a pair at 5 of bamboo. And if you do the math, then you see that the acceptance or the score increases by 1, right? And yeah, this is therefore only better if the 5 of bamboo has not yet been discarded, right? And the increase is only marginal, right? The score increases only by 1. So if you draw this and throw the 5 of bamboo right back, that would not be a mistake in my opinion, right? But again, my opinion, right, or my preference is if it's not discarded, I would just keep it, right? Maybe you can get this chow. Okay. So now, please look at this hand and try to assess the strength of this 1 away while I give you a couple of seconds. Alright, so the solution to this one is the following. Again, we have here a situation where we don't have a completed pair in our hand, right? But in this case, we have 6 different tiles that if we get into our hand, then we are calling for a valid hand. And this is due to, so here having no pair, but two incompleted sequences that each confirm a fan is the only good case where having no pair is good, right? So here we have two options, which is pure straight or mixed straight, right? With a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. So what you want here is either the 2 of characters for pure straight or the 3 of bamboo for mixed straight. But in this case, having no pair, right, you also are looking for a pair, right, which you can get by drawing either the 1 or the 3 of characters or the 1 and the 2 of bamboo. So if you count up all of the things that you can pick or you can chow, then you will end up with a score of 28, which is already quite decent, right? So whenever you find yourself in the situation that previously, right, where you had no pair, the situation was terrible, right? If you pick a tile that can move you towards this situation right here, right, do keep them in your hand, right? Because you can get a better one away this way. Okay. So now let's look at this hand right here, right, where you just drew the 9 of characters. Now feel free to pause the video and think about what would you discard after this draw while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, if you had the time to think about it, here is the solution to this problem. And the only solution to this problem is to discard the 9 of circles. So now let's discuss why the 9 of circles is the only good discard here. So it seems like that it is clear that the hand will be pure straight, right? You already see it, right? It's 1 to the 9 of characters, and you are looking for the 1 and the 8, which are still missing, right? So here this one away has a strength of 16, which is equal to the first example, right? You want to pick or chow the 1 and the 8 of characters, right? So if your thinking stops at this point, then it seems like that both of the 9s here are an equal discard, right? But the fatal flaw with this thinking is that it ignores the possibility of upgrading the 1 away. So let's imagine we discarded the 9 of circles correctly, and then you drew the 8 of bamboo. Feel free to pause the video and think about your discard in this situation. Alright, so the correct answer to this problem is you discard either the 7 or the 9 of characters. So why would you do this, right? So if you discard the 7 and the 9 of characters, then your new acceptance becomes the 1 and the 4 of characters and the 7 of bamboo, right? Remember, we have now 2 confirmed shapes for mixed straight, with the last one being incomplete. So you have 1, 2, 3 completed, 4, 5, 6 completed, and now you are only waiting for the 7 of bamboo for the mixed straight. And therefore, you are free in your acceptance in the other shapes, right? So for the 2 and the 3 of characters, you can accept the 1 and the 4. And if you do the math, then you can see that the score becomes 22, which is a 37.5% increase in score, right? But you think, oh, but pure straight, it's 16 fan, mixed straight is only 8. Yes, right? Yes, it's 8 fan less, but it is absolutely worth it, right? A pure straight isn't worth anything if you do not win this hand, right? And in addition, by winning yourself, you also deny points from others by preventing them from winning, right? Again, the pure straight, right? If you win a hand, if you win an 8 fan hand from somebody else, right, you get 32 points, right? 8 fan plus 24 payment, right? And if you win a 16 fan hand, right, with pure straight, it's only 40, right? You go from 32 to 40, right? This is not a big percentage increase. So the best option here is to give up on the pure straight and go for mixed straight, right? Because then you have a higher chance of getting to a calling hand, right? And you can even further upgrade the acceptance, right? Think about what tiles would do this, right? Right? And the answer is drawing another 2 or 3 of characters, right? Then you can also pung, right? You can also start punging. Okay. So I hope, right, you remember this one, right? Upgrading the one away is quite important. So notice, right, from the previous example, what changed, right? Here in this situation, so instead of the 1, 2, 3 of circles, we chow the 2, 3, 4. And in this case, there is no mixed straight, right? So now it doesn't matter which one of the 9s you discard first. And in the next situation here, instead of the good shape with the 2 and the 3 of characters, you have the 1 and the 3 of the characters. And here, even if you keep the 9 and draw the 8 of bamboo, the acceptance doesn't change, right? If you pivot to the mixed straight. So in this case, you would always go for the higher fan. But here I would still keep the 9 of bamboo, since if, like, for some reason, right, the player on your left discard the 8 of characters and you gee, right, you wanna chow, but then it gets ponged, right? Then you are very annoyed, right, if this happens. So in that case, if you have the 9 of bamboo, you can still pivot to mixed straight, right, if this happens. Okay. So now, please look at this hand, right, this example right here. And when you notice this hand, right, you immediately, this south wind is completely useless tile, right? It does not contribute to the acceptance, whatever, right? And in this case, you are looking towards the mixed triple chows, right? With the 5, 6, 7 in all 3 suits. And the acceptance is equal to the one in the first example, right? 16, which is not good, right? Not very good. But you can actually upgrade your one away, right? Again, the south is completely useless. So let's imagine you can draw any tile that you want in the next turn, right? Except for the ones that give you calling hand, right? So none of the 7s here, right? You can choose any other tile, right? Which of the tiles would you want to get in your hand, right? Would upgrade your one away. Please think about this while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so the solution to this question are one of these 6 tiles, right? But be careful, you have to pick one of these 6 tiles by yourself, right? You cannot chow one of the 4s, right? So if you chow the 4, then it's all over, right? You have confirmed this shape, but you don't have mixed triple chow, mixed shifted chows, right? Or mixed triple chow. So you have to draw one of these tiles by yourself. And now the second part of this question, right? Which upgrade would you prefer to draw from one of these 6 tiles? So let's imagine you will draw one of these 6 tiles in the next turn. Which one would you prefer, right? Again, pause the video and think about your favorite tile here. Okay, now I will reveal the solution, and the answer is either of the 4s, right? So if you manage to self-pick this tile in the next turn, you are technically calling, right, for the 4 on the 7 of the other suit. But you will not have a valid hand, right? You still don't have mixed shifted chows or mixed triple chow. But if you draw one of the 4s, then your acceptance for ready hand are 6 tiles large, right, instead of 2. Right? Previously it was only one of the 2 7s. But now you have these 6 tiles that you can get, and which 4 of them you can already chow, right? So let's go through the example. So let's imagine you have the 4 of bamboo, right? You draw the 4. Then you can chow the 3 of bamboo to wait for mixed shifted chows with 3, 4, 5 of bamboo and waiting for the 4 of circles, right? You can also chow the 7, which is the initial plan mixed triple chow. You can pick the 3 of circles, waiting for the 4 of circles after discarding the 6 of circles for mixed shifted chows. You can call the 4 of circles with chow, discard the 6 of bamboo, waiting for the 3 of bamboo for mixed shifted chows. You can chow the 7 for the initial plan, but you can also draw 8, discarding the 5 of circles, waiting for mixed shifted chows with 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. So very large acceptance, and it's signaled in the score of 40, right? That would be an awesome draw, right? But if you get the other draws right, then your acceptance also increases, right, from 16 to 24, right? And please think about for yourself, let's say you draw the 3 of bamboo. What are the 3 different tiles that you can take, and which fan does it then make, right? Okay, so now let's move on to the next slide. So let's use this previous example, right, where we had to decide of discarding the 9 of circles or the 9 of bamboo, right? And we correctly discarded the 9 of circles. Now let's think about upgrading this one away, right? What tiles would you want to draw so that you are improving your current situation of a one away, right? So again, the one away right now is the score is 16. Which tile would you want? Okay, now I will reveal the solution. The solution is one of these 7 tiles, right? We already looked at the upgrade when you draw either the 7 and 8 of bamboo. However, you can also draw one of the upgrades in the characters to look for pure shifted chows, right? And let's say you draw the 3 of characters. Then you discard the 9 of bamboo, right? And now, in addition to the 1 and the 8 of characters, you gain the acceptance on the 5 of characters, right? Because if you get the 5 of characters, let's say a chow with a 5, 6, 7, right? You have the 3, 4, 5 in the hand after drawing the 3. You're waiting for the 1 of characters for pure shifted chows, right? And you can claim this 5 by chow, so your total score increases from 16 to 22, which is equal to the upgrade if you manage to draw a bamboo tile, right? So if you draw one of these upgrade, so if you're in this situation, you just draw and discard, right, anything until you draw one of these tiles, right, and then make sure to identify the upgrade and keep these tiles, right? Okay. And yeah, so again, note, so let's go back to the last slide. If you incorrectly discarded the 9 of circles, the 9 of bamboo in this hand, right, and you are left with the 9 of circles, you lose the upgrade possibilities in the bamboo characters, right? So 2 less upgrades, and if you do this often enough, right, you will get punished, right? You will get into this situation where you suddenly draw like the 8 of bamboo and you say, oh, why didn't I keep the 9 of bamboo, right? If this happens, right, you missed a chance, right? Okay, so now here, upgrades. So we looked at possibilities to upgrade your one away with self-draw, but sometimes these upgrades can also be claimed with chow, right? So here, please look at this hand and think about what tiles would you chow with this hand while I give you a couple of seconds. So we had the time to think about it. The solution is one of these 7 tiles, right? And please verify the increase in the acceptance by yourself, right? You will immediately notice that the shapes are now much better connected to mix shifted, right? So here this mixed triple chow looks very restrictive, right? Of course, if the 4 of bamboo comes out, right, you pick it yourself, right? You obviously it will be mixed triple chow, right? You have a great acceptance, right? 2 floating tile acceptance, which is always great. But especially attractive chow is the 6, right? Either of these 6s, right? The 6 of characters or the 6 of circles. Because if you manage to chow one of these ones, right, you have, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, right? You can connect to the mixed shifted chows with a 5, 6, 7 in the bamboo suit, but also with a 2, 3, 4 in the bamboo suit, right? So you have an up and down mixed shifted chow possibilities, which increases the acceptance of your one away, right? Right now, this one away is very bad, right? Even if you draw the one of bamboo, right? You don't have enough fun in your hand, right? You have to self-pick, right? You are still ready, but you have to self-pick here the 6 of bamboo, which, yeah, it's just not good enough, right? You want to maximize everything, right? Okay. So here what I wrote down is hands that have more / better upgrading possibilities. They are better than hands that don't have them, right? Even if they score the same amount of fun. Okay, so try to go for hands where you can upgrade your one away. Okay, so let's move on to special hands. And here, please look at this hand that is aiming for the all types fan, right? And you just drew the 7 of bamboo. So feel free to pause the video and think about what would you discard in this situation while I give you a couple of seconds. So if you had a thought, right, here is the solution. The solution is to discard either the west or the north wind, right? You might think, oh, why would we intentionally decrease our chances of going for all types, right? So the previous acceptance, right, actually for all types, frequently the case, is very bad, right? You have a pair and 2 single wins that you want to pair up as well. So the acceptance here, if you do the math, is actually only 14, right? So very unlikely that you get this, right? But if you pick up the 7 of circles, right, your acceptance becomes this one, right? So 6 tiles, which 4 of which can be called with chow, right? And if you get any of these circle tiles in your hand, you will be calling for chicken hand, right? So please visualize this situation from unfolding, right? Don't forget that chicken hand here is a possibility, right? You can still pivot to all types if you manage to pong the white dragon quite early, right? But if it's already second row or later and you still didn't get the white dragon, you have to assume the possibility that the white dragon pair is in somebody else's hand, right? So here having the option of chicken hand has you giving a score of 39. So almost triple, right? Triple the score for the previous situation. Okay, so now let's stay with this hand and let's imagine you didn't draw the 7, but instead one of these 4 tiles shown here, right? And now the task is to decide which of these draws is better than keeping one of these wins, right? Again, pause the video and think about this. Okay, the solution is here. right? So if you get the 5 of circles, your score is 43, which is even better than drawing the 7 of circles, simply because you can also draw the 5 and the 8 of circles, waiting on the pair for check in hand. Right? And for the 9 of circles, it is 24, accepting the following tiles where you can chow the 7. The 3 of characters is 21, where you accept 4 tiles where you can chow the 2 of characters. And for the 6 of characters, the score is 19, also much better than 14, where you're floating around the 6, right, for the 5 and the 7, for chicken hand as well. So the conclusion is every draw here is better than the previous one away, right? However, there are some tiles that do not improve. Please check, right? Please think about what would you do after drawing the 2 of bamboo, for example. Alright, so let's move on to the next slide. So the conclusion is all type and chicken hand are closely linked together, right? So if you have the options, right, you can pivot freely for them. And sometimes the acceptance for chicken hand is so good that you just give up all types, right? So my recommendation is so that you have the option of pivoting, right? So when you can avoid, or let's say you have 2, 3, 4 in the characters and in bamboo, right? Which is mixed double chow, right? It's one fan, right? But if you somehow get the 5 of bamboo, right, even with a chow, right, you should chow this and sacrifice this one fan in order to have the ability to pivot, right? This is sometimes this is a good idea. But of course, if you called this honor pair very early, right, if you punked the white dragon in the second turn, you do not have the luxury of pivoting and you have to commit, right? Then you have to commit and your one away might be very bad, right? Then there's nothing you can do about this. But depending on whether you manage to get the wind and the dragon pair before being one away, this can increase your acceptance immensely. So here I've compared these two situations where in the above situation you do not have the second pair in the dragon suit, right, where the score is 22, right? You have to chow or get the 6 and the 9 of circles to be calling, or getting lucky and drawing one of the dragons. But for the below example, you already have this dragon pair in your hand, and now the acceptance is far greater, right? Here, if you do the math, you can self-pick any bamboo tile, or make a pong on the green dragon to be ready. And the score is 40, which is awesome. Okay, so now we are at the end of this course, and now I've prepared 3 questions that are taken from real games. And yeah, so please think about these questions and pause the video while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so this was from a real game I played, and the solution to this question here, right? Obviously, the previous plan was to go for a mixed straight, right? I already have the 4, 5, 6, right? I was waiting or hoping for the 1 of characters and the 9 of bamboo, right? If I managed to call one of these, I would be calling, right? But again, I need to get one of these 2 tiles where the score was 16, right? Again, this is the most common situation, and the score is 16. However, now I drew a tile that upgraded my 1 away, right? Since now I would, where I was pivoting to pure shifted chows, since I have already 2 chows completed, right? This is why I kept the 7 of circles in my hand at all times, because I saw this possibility. Right, so I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9 confirmed, and now I have the third incompleted shape, right? Hoping for the 3 of circles, and since you want to have a pair in your hand, the solution is discard either the 7 or the 8 of bamboo. Okay, so in the game what happened is I got the 5 of circles, and then I called quickly the one of characters, right, from the player to my left, and was waiting for the 3 of circles and won this hand. Okay, so now this is the second question. Again, feel free to pause the video and think about what would you discard while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so if you had the time to think about this, obviously the correct answer here is the 3 of characters. So if you discard the 3 of characters, right, previously, again, the same situation, I was hoping for mixed shifted chows with 1, 2, 3 in all 3 suits. But after drawing the 5 of characters, you can also go for the mixed shifted chows, accepting the 4 of characters, right? And also it widens your one away immensely, because you can also chow the 4 and the 7 of bamboo in order to waiting on the mixed shifted chows, right? Again, you have 2 confirmed shapes, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, with the 3, 5 being incomplete. However, in the game, my opposing player already had the open Kong on the 4 of characters, right? Which made this option obsolete, so I threw out the 5 of characters. Okay, so here is the last question. So, right, again, all examples are taken from real games, and the 3 of circles has just been called, right? Was just this card, and I called it. So again, please look at the situation and think about your next discard while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so the solution to this one is discarding the 4 of characters, right? So again, it is all about what is your maximum acceptance for a one-away hand, right? And in the game, I got a chow next with the 7 of circles, which upgraded my one-away, and I ended up with the pure shifted chows, right? Imagine the situation, discarding the 4. I got the chow on the 7. I discard the other 4, right? I can chow either the 3 and the 6 of bamboo, discard the last character tile, waiting for the 3 of circles for pure shifted chows, right? And there's another option here, right? If you discard the 4 of characters and you don't get this chow, but you draw the 6 of characters, for example, right? Then you discard the 5 of circles, right? Because now you have options either with a mixed triple chow with a 4, 5, 6, right, in all suits, or you also can get mixed shifted chows, right, with 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 5, 6, right, or 1, 2, 3, right? Doesn't matter. So again, right, the topic of this course is to maximize your chances of being one away and keeping all of the upgrade options open in order to have the chances of upgrading, right? So yeah, and there are also many interesting situations that fit this topic, but I can't possibly show them all, right? There are many variants and so on, right? So again, if you notice situations where you see tiles where you can upgrade, right, try to keep these options open. So yeah, that was the course from today, right? Was a short one, but in my opinion, if you make use of the knowledge you gained in this past hour, right, and apply this to your own game, right, you can or you will notice an increase in your winning rate, right? I'm sure of that. So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our channel, and see you next time. Bye.